Downtown Charleston boasts several historic house museums where you can get an authentic feel for life in the past. The Joseph Manigault House is an Adamesque style structure built in 1803 by some of Charleston's wealthiest citizens.
The Manigault family were French Huguenots that immigrated here in 1685, and they were a family that were very wealthy because of rice plantations, considered to be one of the wealthiest in the country.
You'll enter through the spacious hallway, which is large for a Charleston home. A breakfront bookcase made in Massachusetts around 1800 holds Manigault family china from the 1820s. The room features a spectacular cantilevered staircase, which seems to have no means of support. An Austrian crystal chandelier hangs from the ceiling. Over the ornate mantel in the hallway hangs a portrait of Joseph Manigault's wife, Charlotte Drayton Manigault, the lady of the house. The dining room was the location for lavish early afternoon meals enjoyed by the Manigaults and their guests. Notice the intricate classical detail worked into the plaster in the ceiling corners. The furniture in this room is some of the finest anywhere in Charleston. The sideboard on the left was signed by its maker. The inscription reads, "Robert Walker, 1828. Those that steals this is drunken rascal." On top sit twin mahogany knife boxes, which were made to order just to fit the silver pieces meant to go inside. Above the fireplace hangs a portrait of Joseph's father, Peter Manigault. And the clock on the mantel is thought to be the same one that's featured in the painting. The library across the hall is a room Joseph Manigault may have used for work and study himself. A portrait of Joseph as a young man in his 20s hangs in this room. According to family tradition, musical instruments and indoor games were played in the small room adjoining the library. The harp in the corner was made in Paris in 1786. Upstairs, the drawing room was used for formal entertaining and was resplendent with the finest furniture and most elaborate architectural details. For instance, the stunning chandelier hanging from the ceiling is composed of more than 2,000 crystals. A portrait of Joseph Manigault's mother, Elizabeth Ragg Manigault, presides over this room. And the jib doors opened onto the porches to allow extra space for entertaining during the warm summer months. The adjacent card room offered an intimate space where family members might read, take tea, or play cards. The mahogany table in the middle of the room features satinwood inlay with 3 oval medallions containing the image of an insect. In the bedroom, the 4-poster rice bed is the star. The carved posts are decorated with rice stalks, the local cash crop. In the corner is a small dressing room, one of the first examples of such a room in Charleston. As you leave, take note of the interesting covered gateway that provides the entrance to the grounds.
The gate temple, as we like to call it, or garden folly is sometimes what it's called. It's a popular design in French and English formal gardens. Again, fitting in with that Adamesque architecture. They like the neoclassical and Greek style.
Nearby, at 48 Elizabeth Street, stands the stunning Aiken Red House, built around 1820 by a wealthy Charleston merchant and later purchased by a family that produced a South Carolina governor. The property was an urban plantation, and in addition to the mansion, its walls enclose a large area that was once under cultivation. 2 detached wings in back include a carriage house and a stable, as well as a large urban slave quarters that fascinates visitors today.
It replicates what real life was during that time. You can feel the life of those who were enslaved and who lived in those quarters.
The house was owned by members of the family until it became a museum in the 1970s, and by then it had been closed up for more than 2 decades. Today, the Historic Charleston Foundation exhibits the home in as close to its original state as possible.
The Aiken Red House is conserved. It's sort of like a capsule in time. All the furnishings there belong to members of the Aiken and the Red families, so you can feel an aura of family and history just walking in that house.
Guests enter the home via a double flight of marble stairs. Inside, the grand double parlor is so big it was once used to host a reception with 500 guests for Confederate President Jefferson Davis. An art gallery exhibits treasures the Aiken family collected during their overseas travels. The house also features 2 piazzas, one on each floor. They provide a cooling breeze and a relaxing view of the surrounding neighborhood. Further south on the peninsula, the Hayward Washington House stands at 87 Church Street. It was built in the late 18th century by Colonel Daniel Hayward, a wealthy rice planter, for his son, Thomas Hayward, Jr.
Thomas Hayward Jr. was one of the 4 signers of the Declaration of Independence from South Carolina and a very prominent patriot here in Charleston. He fought in several battles and commanded a small battalion.
The city of Charleston leased the home from the Haywards as lodging for George Washington when he visited the city in May 1791, and that's why it's now referred to as the Hayward Washington House. The house was opened to the public as the city's first house museum in 1930. Today, it's best known for its rare and valuable furniture.
The houses are filled with period furniture so that people can actually see what types of furnishings would have been available to the Charleston people in the time period.
The most famous piece in the entire home is the bookcase in the library.
And it is said to be the finest example of American-made furniture ever crafted. And it was made in Charleston about 1770. Its construction is very special and unique. It's got some beautiful woods that were used in it: mahogany, live oak, satinwood, and it's got these beautiful serpentine fronts that are done by coopering the doors like you would a barrel.
Upstairs, a large drawing room is richly furnished with a spinet, an early keyboard instrument, and a variety of furniture, including a Venetian marble-top table from Drayton Hall Plantation. Here, too, are the bedrooms, handsomely appointed with 4-poster beds. Outside, a formal garden graces the grounds. Here you'll find a detached kitchen that's older than the main house. It dates to 1740. Another early 19th century home, the Nathaniel Russell House on Meeting Street, is open for visitors seeking a peek into Charleston's past.
Well, the Nathaniel Russell House was built in 1808 by a New England merchant, Nathaniel Russell from Bristol, Rhode Island. He was a merchant. He was building the grandest house in Charleston, and he succeeded and moved in with his family, lived there for 12 years, 1808 to 1820. As such, we have furnished the house in the period that reflects best the years that he lived there. So we translate that house in his era. The personality of the Nathaniel Russell House, I think, reflects exactly what Nathaniel Russell wanted it to reflect. It reflects opulence, it reflects intelligence, intellect, sophistication, the use of the finest paints, the finest stylings of wood, and the architecture, the curves. It's sort of the latest in architecture. The furnishings and the collections are very carefully selected, many Charleston pieces, and also to reflect the very time that Nathaniel Russell and his family lived in the house. The one thing that sticks with people is that beautiful spiral staircase that's supported on a cantilevered basis. One step holds up the next step. It curves all the way to the 3rd floor, and beautiful windows, and the prettiest view in the whole house to me is standing on the 1st floor in the middle of that stairwell, looking straight up and seeing the staircase go to the 3rd floor.
The last historic Charleston home we'll visit is the one with perhaps the best view, the 19th century Edmundston Alston house located on the world-famous Battery, right on the waterfront at the tip of the peninsula at 21 East Battery Street.
I think because the house is on the Battery, this is really what brings people down here. It's a great view of the harbor, and of course the house being about 90% of the furniture and silver and so forth in the house all belong to the Alston family. It's not a museum that's been assembled. This is the family's possessions.
Today, visitors are impressed by the handsomely appointed rooms that greet them when they enter the front door. But the real surprise waits at the top of the stairs.
I think when they particularly come upstairs, these two rooms, the two drawing rooms, as soon as they walk into that entresol in between them, a lot of times they say, "Oh, wow." And of course, that's what the Alstons wanted them to do. This was the entertaining rooms, the formal rooms in the house.
Of particular interest is the view out the window of the study, which faces the water and the historic fortifications in the harbor.
Probably why Mr. Edmundston, who built it, he was a merchant, and he would see the ships come and go in and out of the harbor. We think that's probably why he bought this lot then and built the house originally.
But the true payoff awaits when visitors step out onto the upstairs piazza, a spot where Confederate General Beauregard is believed to have watched the opening shots of the Civil War on Fort Sumter in 1861.
Well, we know that General Beauregard did see the bombardment from this house. We're not sure exactly where he stood.
Even if this wasn't the exact spot where the legendary general stood, it's not hard to imagine the centuries of history that have slipped past as you stand here enjoying what may be the best view in the city.